We're going to read the whole end-user license agreement. All of it. We're going to read the whole thing. All of it. You should carefully read the entire following end-user license agreement before buying, downloading, installing, using, or playing the game as defined below, or any related software and/or content. This agreement contains important terms that affect your legal rights. By buying, downloading, installing, using, or playing the game, you agree to be bound by all of the terms of this agreement. If you do not agree to all of the terms of this agreement, please do not, and you are not permitted to, download, install, use, or play the game. Okay. By downloading, installing, using, or playing the game, you confirm that you have read this end-user license agreement, the ZeniMax Terms of Service, and the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, and that you agree to the terms in this agreement, and the Terms of Service, collectively, this agreement. You further acknowledge and understand that ZeniMax will process your personal information in accordance with the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, available at https Bethesda.net document privacy-policy. If you do not accept the terms of this agreement, or you have not read and understood the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, do not download, install, or use the game. For ease of reference, the ZeniMax Terms of Service may be found at https Bethesda.net document/terms of service. Okay. This agreement is between you and ZeniMax Media Incorporated, including its parent and affiliate companies, collectively, ZeniMax. ZeniMax? Like Zenny as in like money? ZeniMax. As set out in Section 1 of the Terms and Service, if you are a resident in the EEA, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, Japan, or Brazil, ZeniMax acknowledges that there are certain guarantees, warranties, terms, and conditions, including in respect of refunds and returns, and unfair terms, imposed by the laws relating to the supply of goods, services, and digital content, which the law expressly provide. That may not be excluded, restricted, or modified, or may only be limited to a certain extent the statutory obligations. Nothing in this EULA, EULA, excludes, restricts, or modifies the statutory obligations otherwise than according to such laws. Photosensitivity warning, we don't need to read about seizures. Well, obviously this is the best part of Oblivion. Oblivion was made on rules. Come on, Ink. This is the best part. Disputes provision. The ZeniMax Terms and Service contains a dispute resolution binding arbitration and class action waiver provision. The disputes provision. That, if you reside in a jurisdiction outside of the EEA/United Kingdom, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, Japan, or Brazil that permits class actions or other collective disputes, affect your rights under the ZeniMax Terms and Service and this EULA with respect to disputes you may have with ZeniMax. That disputes provision is incorporated into the EULA by this reference and forms a part of this EULA as if such provision were fully restated in this EULA. Okay, so they just cover the ground twice. You may opt out of the binding individual arbitration and class action waiver as provided in the ZeniMax Terms of Service. Okay. I can opt out of something. Okay. Any and all uses of the game are governed by the terms of the EULA and the ZeniMax Terms of Service, collectively the agreement to play the game. You must A, obtain from ZeniMax access to the game, and B, download the game client as defined below, or C, play the game via a third-party streaming service. The ZeniMax Terms of Service are hereby incorporated into and form a part of this EULA by this reference as if such provisions were fully restated in this EULA. You have held my attention longer than the trailer did. Yeah, think about it. I am doing you a public service. That way, if nobody wants to read this, but they want to have like their legal rights like before them, they can just pull up the stream and be like, "Wow, Turtle, you're reading?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm reading the terms of service because that's what you're supposed to do legally, like they say right here." Like, you should carefully read this entire following end-user license agreement before buying, downloading, installing, using, or playing the game. And I'm gonna play the game, so I've gotta read the whole document. Duh. Let's see, where was I? Somewhere over here. Yeah, fully restated by the EULA. The EULA constitutes supplemental terms as contemplated by the ZeniMax Terms of Service? What? The game is made available and distributed solely for use by authorized end users according to the terms of this agreement. Any use, reproduction, modification, or distribution of this game is not expressly authorized by the terms of this agreement and is expressly prohibited. You agree that the game client, other game-related software, content as defined in the terms and service specific to the game, and your access to and use of the game are all a service for the purpose of this agreement. Any rights not granted to you in this agreement are reserved by ZeniMax. Literally, they just said, our game is our game, don't use it for your stuff. If we didn't say anything, we still said anything, because everything that we didn't say is still covered. That's such a dumb line that's legally binding. Any rights not granted to you in this agreement are reserved by ZeniMax? That's crazy. They can say that? They're legally allowed to say that? That's crazy. You acknowledge that ZeniMax may process your personal information in accordance with the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, which is available at Bethesda.net Document Privacy Policy, and you agree that ZeniMax Code of Conduct, which is available also at Bethesda.net Document Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct is incorporated into the EULA by this reference and forms a part of the agreement as if it were fully restated in this EULA. All personal information collected and processed in connection to this agreement will be collected and processed in accordance with the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy. You should save a copy of this EULA, the Terms of Service, the Privacy Policy, and the Code of Conduct for your records and for future reference. All software programs and any and all files that are delivered to you or made available to you by ZeniMax, directly or indirectly through ZeniMax authorized reseller or distributor via online access, transmission, download, or otherwise, including any patcher, installer, any updates, modifications to such software programs, and any and all copies and derivative works of such software programs collectively with the game client defined below the game are the copyrighted works of ZeniMax and affiliates. Does that mean that, hold on. Directly or indirectly through ZeniMax, authorized resellers or distributors are also a part of their team, but, including any patcher. So this is only through ZeniMax though, so they can't claim other people's stuff. That's cool. And all the copies of derivative. Okay, wait, what? And any updates and modifications to such software. Okay, so this is where they switch it. And modifications to such software programs and any and all copies of derivative works such as software programs collectively with the game client defined below the game, your copyrighted works of ZeniMax and affiliates. So it's licensed to you, not sold to you. That's so crazy that they actually say that like that. Legal jargon is crazy because of the way that it, like, blankets things. Ugh. Limited license restriction and ownership. If you agree to this agreement, you may download and install or stream the computer software of this game, hereafter referred to as the game client, onto your computer/console for the purposes of playing the game. Subject to your compliance with all the terms and conditions of this agreement, ZeniMax hereby grants, and you hereby accept, a limited, non-transferable, non-exclusive license to install the game client on one or more computers and or consoles owned by you or under your legitimate control, and B, to use the game client solely as part of the service for your non-commercial entertainment purposes only. Dang, I can't sell my game to somebody else. Dang, man. The ZeniMax Terms of Service include terms and conditions applicable to virtual currency as such terms as defined in the ZeniMax Terms of Service, including terms that grant you to a non-exclusive, limited license for virtual currency. Such terms and conditions apply to the virtual currency, if any, licensed to you for with the game. Subject to statutory obligations as defined in Section 1 of the Terms of Service, this agreement does not give you any right to obtain reissues or replacements of the game at any time, and ZeniMax is not obligated to supply software updates, upgrades, or expansion for the game, or even to operate or continue to support the game for an indefinite period. As further described in the ZeniMax Terms of Service, but subject to the statutory obligations as defined in Section 1 of the ZeniMax Terms of Service, ZeniMax may change, modify, suspend, or discontinue any aspect of the game at any time, and ZeniMax may also impose limits on... Fly, how dare you? Shut up, Fly. Shut up. I have never played Oblivion. We're reading the Terms of Service. Hush. Sit down and listen. ZeniMax may also impose limits on certain features or restrict your access to parts or all of the game without notice or liability, which is wild to me. In all cases, the licenses granted to you in this agreement will terminate upon the earlier of termination of this agreement. What? Granted to you in this agreement will terminate upon the earlier of termination of this agreement. Throw clear. No. It's not about me reading or not reading it. It's about me doing my legal duty and reading this because I am legally supposed to. Look, hold on. You should carefully read the entire following. I should, and I agree. So my soul, that's what I'm trying to make sure I don't have to do. Something over here. Yeah, right here. I'm right here. In all cases, the licenses granted to you in this agreement will terminate upon the earlier of termination of this agreement. Deletion of the game from your devices or termination of your Bethesda account with ZeniMax is applicable. No, do it. Bro's sold. He reads terms and conditions. The ZeniMax Terms of Service includes terms and conditions applicable to user-generated content, downloadable content, and other content you agree to comply with such... Oh, what? Oh, so this is just like saying that like some of their legal safety nets cover modifications to the game, the downloaded content, and other content you agree to comply with. Okay. That's weird, but cool. Software updates and anti-cheating and security tools. ZeniMax may deploy or provide patches, updates, improvements, upgrades, and modifications to the game, named updates, that must be installed by you in the manner described by ZeniMax, in its discretion before you may continue to play the game. All such updates are part of the game for purposes of this agreement. The licenses granted to you and the license limitations set forth in this agreement. Oh, man. My throat's getting sore. We're not even halfway. The terms of this agreement will govern any updates provided by ZeniMax that replace and or supplement the original game, unless such updates are accompanied by a separate license agreement, in which case the terms of that license agreement will govern. ZeniMax has implemented tools and software designed to detect and prevent cheating and fraud. Anti-cheat tools. These technologies may scan any computer or device from which you download or play the game to detect or identify any programs or processes designed to cheat, gain an unfair advantage in the game, or otherwise circumvent any security. Anti-cheat or fraud detection processes or tools we have implemented, called cheat programs. By using or downloading the game, you accept this agreement, you acknowledge and expressly agree to the access to your computer or device by these anti-cheat tools to identify or detect cheat programs. I might be in the same state, wild. There's a lot of reading. Oh, God. Limitations and restrictions. Certain features of the game are a service offered by ZeniMax and may only be downloaded online. In such cases, an internet connection, which is not supplied by ZeniMax, is required to access these features. You are responsible for all costs and expenses associated with acquiring any hardware, software, internet browsers, or other products or services required to play the game. In addition to the restrictions, conditions, and limitations set forth in ZeniMax Terms of Service and the ZeniMax Code of Conduct, the license granted to you in this EULA is subject to the conditions, restrictions, and limitations set forth in Section 1 and this Section 3 of the EULA, collectively the license limitations. Any use of the game in violation of the license limitations will be regarded as an infringement of ZeniMax's copyrights and to the game and will be a breach of this agreement. You agree that you will not and will not assist any other person under any circumstances to A. In whole or in part, distribute, public inform, or display, sell, transmit, publish, edit, reproduce, sublicense, rent, lease, loan, or otherwise transfer the game or content, including, without limitation, any access keys. B. In whole or in part, modify, adapt, translate, reverse engineer, attempt to derive source code from, modify, disassemble, decompile, or create derivative works based on the game. Provided, however, that you may make one copy of the game client and the manuals that accompany it for archival purposes only, and you may install the relevant game client on one or more computers, consoles, or devices owned by you or under your legitimate control as described in Section 1 above. C. Remove any proprietary notices or labels on the game, or attempt in any manner to circumvent any security measures designed to control access to the game or any part thereof. D. Use cheats, automation software, bots, hacks, mods, or any unauthorized third-party software designed to modify the game or adversely impact any other person's playing of the game or their experience of playing the game. E. Exploit the game or any of its parts, including without limitation the game client for any commercial purposes, including without limitation renting, leasing, or licensing the game to others, including without limitation A. For gathering virtual currency as defined in the ZeniMax Terms of Service, items or resources for sale outside of the game, or B. Performing in-game services in exchange for payment outside of the game, e.g. power leveling. Wait, did they literally just say you can't pay somebody to level up your character for you? Huh. That's a weird legal line that they wanted to add. Okay. For F, use any unauthorized third-party software that intercepts, mines, or otherwise collects information from or through the game or the service, including without limitation any software that reads areas of RAM used by the game to store information about a character or the game environment, provided, however, that ZeniMax may, in its sole and absolute discretion, allow the use of certain third-party user interfaces and other third-party software. G. Modify or cause to be modified any files that are a part of the game and or game client in any way not expressly authorized by ZeniMax. H. Host, provide or develop matchmaking services for the game, or intercept, emulate, or redirect the communication protocols used by ZeniMax in any way, for any purpose, including, without limitation, unauthorized play over the internet, network play, or as part of a content aggregation networks. I. Facilitate, create, or maintain any unauthorized connection to the game or the service, including without limitation any connection to any unauthorized server that emulates or attempts to emulate the service, and B. Any connection using programs or tools not expressly approved by ZeniMax. J. Take any action or upload, post, transmit, promote, or distribute any illegal content. K. Take any action or upload, post, transmit, promote, or distribute any content that infringes or violates any third-party rights. L. Engage in, take any action associated with, or participate in any type of child solicitation, grooming behavior, pedophilia, or predatory behavior in any form. Damn! Of course, of course. M. Harass, stalk, threaten, embarrass, spam, or do anything else to another user of the game that is unwanted, such as repeatedly sending unwanted messages or making personal attacks or statements about race, sexual orientation, religion, heritage, etc. Mikey, that means you can't play the game. Sorry, man. Like your favorite pastime's like banned right here. It's right here in paper, right there. It's on paper, digital paper. Take any action or upload, post, transmit, distribute, or communicate your or any person's real-world personal information. Hell no, we gotta read the rest of it. We're almost there, we're almost there. We're a little over halfway. Impersonate any person or entity, including but not limited to ZeniMax, ZeniMax's partners or affiliates, employees, or falsely state or otherwise misrepresent your affiliation with a person or entity. P. Take any action, organize, transmit any content, effectuate, or participate in any activity, group, or guild that is harmful, torturous, abusive, hateful, including hate speech, racially, ethnically, religiously, or otherwise offensive, obscene, threatening, bullying, vulgar, sexually explicit, defamatory, libelous, infringing, invasive, or of personal privacy or public publicity rights, encourages conduct that would violate a law or is, in a reasonable person's view, objectionable and or deemed to be the sole discretion of ZeniMax inappropriate. Q. Promote, upload, transmit, encourage, or take part in any activity involving hacking, cracking, phishing, and taking advantage of exploits or cheats, and or the distribution of counterfeit software and or virtual currency or virtual items. In an effort to continuously improve the game, you and other players discovering exploits, cheats, cracks, or other inconsistencies are required to report them to ZeniMax or R. Take any action or upload, post, transmit, promote, or distribute any content that may contain a Trojan horse, virus, worms, spyware, time bombs, cancel bots, corrupted data, or other computer programs that you do not own or have permission to freely distribute that may damage, interfere with, intercept, expropriate, or disrupt the game. Any attempt to do so of the foregoing is a breach of this agreement and may be in violation of the intellectual property rights of this game. If you breach these restrictions, you may be subject to prosecution and damages. The game is licensed to you as a single product. Its component parts may not be separated for use on more than one computer or device. The game is licensed, not sold. Your license confers no title or ownership in the game or copies thereof. 4. Ownership of the game. ZeniMax and its licensor are and will continue to be the owners of all right, title, and interest in to the game and the service, including without limitation all intellectual property rights and moral rights in and to the game, and all copies thereof, including without limitation any titles, software programs, and code, game-related themes, characters, character names, character likenesses, stories, dialogue, catchphrases, locations, concepts, artwork, character inventory, structural, landscape, and other designs in the game, animations, sounds, musical compositions and recordings, audio, visual effects, storylines, methods of operation, and any related documentation. You shall take no action inconsistent of such title of ownership. The game is protected by the copyright laws of the United States, international treaties and conventions, and other laws. The game may contain materials licensed by third parties, and the licensors of those materials may enforce their rights in the event of any violation to this agreement. You acknowledge and agree that you have no interest, monetary or otherwise, in any feature or content contained in the game. This paragraph will survive the termination of this agreement. 5. Collection and processing of personal information. ZeniMax will process your personal information in accordance with the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, https Bethesda.net document privacy policy. And we also use cookies, web beacons, and other analytic technologies, together cookies herein, and similar mechanisms, including those provided by third parties, to collect, store, and transmit information related to your usage of the service in order to operate, improve, and optimize the service of our other products, to analyze usage, to personalize your experiences using the service, and otherwise in accordance with ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, you expressly acknowledge that you have read and understood the following. ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, found on Bethesda.net Privacy Policy, which explains how we may collect, use, disclose, and otherwise process data about you, including personal information. The ZeniMax Cookie Policy, found on Bethesda.net Document Cookie Policy, which sets forth our use of cookies and your options regarding the same. ZeniMax reserves the right to disclose any information ZeniMax deems necessary to ensure your compliance to this agreement, satisfy any applicable law, regulation, or legal process, and 3. Protect the rights, property, and interests of ZeniMax, its employees, other users of the game, or the public. Ooh! 6. Monitoring and updates. If you request any technical support from ZeniMax, subject to your consent, ZeniMax may remotely access and review the computer or device onto which you have loaded the game client, for purposes of providing technical support and debugging, of course. As further described in the ZeniMax Terms of Service, ZeniMax may update the game remotely, including, without limitation, the game client residing on your computer, console, or device, and you hereby grant to ZeniMax your consent to deploy and apply such updates. You understand and agree that A. Any and all game-related character data may be stored and may be resident on ZeniMax computers and servers, and B. If applicable, any and all communications that you make within the game traverse through ZeniMax computers and servers may or may not be monitored by ZeniMax and ZeniMax's agents, so they're just saving them for later. I see what you're doing. You expressly consent to such monitoring of such communications that you send and receive. The ZeniMax Terms of Service and the ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy include further terms and conditions applicable to the accessing, monitoring, and recording of the activities and communications on and relating to the service, including but not limited to when ZeniMax may report incidents of law enforcement and other authorities. Ooh. All personal information collected and processed by ZeniMax as part of the activities set out in this Section 6 will be collected and processed in accordance with ZeniMax Media Privacy Policy, https Bethesda.net Document Privacy Policy, and the Terms of Agreement. Termination. Number 7. The EULA starts at the time you accept this EULA and will remain effective until terminated. You may terminate this EULA at any time by permanently destroying all copies of the game in your possession or control, removing the game client from your hard drive, console, or device, subject to the statutory obligations as defined in Section 1 of the ZeniMax Terms of Service. ZeniMax may terminate this EULA at any time for any reason or no reason, including at such times as ZeniMax elects to discontinue offering the game. Upon termination by ZeniMax for any reason, all licenses granted in this agreement, including in the ZeniMax Terms of Service, with respect to the game that is the subject of this EULA, shall immediately terminate. And you must immediately do 1 and 2 above. Termination for no reasons will be communicated to you by ZeniMax. Export restrictions. This game may not be exported, re-exported, downloaded, or otherwise transferred, collectively in export, to or into any country which requires an export license or which the United States government prohibits exports. including any such country subject to economic sanctions, or to any person or entity prohibited from receiving goods or service of U.S. origin. You represent and warrant that you are not located in, under the control of, or a national or resident of any such country, or on any such list. This Section 8 will survive the termination of this agreement. Ooh, we're almost done. Home stretch, home stretch. Number 9, warranty. If you, the original purchaser, purchased the game on a physical media such as a disc, your use of the game is subject to the limited warranty included with the manual or other packaging material that came with your purchase. The ZeniMax Terms of Service includes provisions regarding the disclaimer of representations, warranties, and guarantees subject to the statutory obligations as defined in Section 1 of the ZeniMax Terms of Service, and such provisions are incorporated in this EULA by this reference, and form a part of Section 9, shall survive the termination of this agreement. I think I skipped a sentence, hold on. And such provisions are incorporated in this EULA by the reference and form a part of this EULA as if such provisions were fully restated in this EULA. This Section 9 shall survive at the termination of this agreement. With respect to software that is enabled for use on or over the internet, you acknowledge that ZeniMax is not responsible for the internet or whether it should continue to exist in its present form, or whether or not a government or governmental agency, either foreign or domestic, will control, regulate, or disband the internet. Use of the internet is at your sole risk. Limitation of liability reimbursement. Ooh. To the maximum extent permitted by acceptable law, the subject to the statutory obligations as defined in Section 1 of the Terms of Service. In no event shall ZeniMax or any of ZeniMax's licensor be liable for any special, incidental, consequential, punitive, exemplary, or any other indirect damages. 2. Third-party claims, or 3, loss or damage to any systems, hardware or software, records or data, even if advised or aware of the possibility of any such damage. Wow, even if they tell you that there's damages possible, or they were aware of damages, they're not legally responsible. And even if a limited remedy in this agreement fails of its essential purpose, some jurisdictions do not allow the limitation or exclusion of liability. Okay, that's fair. Crazy legal speed. 36 minutes. We're almost done, dude. We're almost done. I think I'm gonna make a video of just me saying this entire thing and going through this entire license and then just post it. Accordingly, some of the above may not apply to you. The ZeniMax Terms of Service include other provisions regarding the limitation of liability and remedies, such... Oh, I lost my place. Where did I... subject to the statutory obligations as defined in Section 1 of the ZeniMax Terms and Service. And such provisions are incorporated in this EULA by the reference and form a part of this EULA as if such provisions were fully restated in this EULA. Dude, if I make a fucking 40-minute video about me reading the end-user license agreement and it blows up, I'll be a little mad because I spend a lot of time editing my other videos. And this one, not getting like any polish or anything, I just upload it as it is, gets everything. Oh, I'd be so upset. If you misuse the game, service, or breach this agreement for Any contributions, actions, or omissions by you in connection with your use of the game and or service result in ZeniMax incurring any liabilities, damage, losses, costs, or any expenses, including without limitation, attorney fee, and court costs, then you agree to reimburse ZeniMax and its affiliates and other participants of the service for such liabilities, damage, loss, costs, and expenses. That's crazy. Hold on. So they just said that if you cost them money, if you do something that breaks something and that makes them lose money and they have to bring you to court over it, you're legally obligated to deal with all of that cost. But on the same side, they're not legally allowed to do the same on you. So if they advise you that something will break and they break it, they're not legally responsible. Although it does say following that this may not apply in some cases where if it's severe enough, it might not apply, or in some places jurisdictions do not allow the limitation or exclusion of liability in some cases. But they did try to get out of it regardless. But they push the consumer into the spot where if the consumer does something, I'll say malicious in this case, they are responsible for all of the damages, including what it takes to fix the damages. And it's not vice versa, where if the company messes up or is malicious, they're not responsible. That's wild to me that they can do that. That's crazy. If a third party sues ZeniMax for either or both of one or two above, ZeniMax reserves the right to control the defense. What? Reserves the right to control the defense and settlement of such third-party lawsuit, and you agree to reimburse ZeniMax for the cost of the defense, including but not limited to reasonable and documented attorney fees? Bro, what? That's disgusting. Is that everywhere? Is this on everything? If you sue them, you pay for their defense? What the hell is this? That's insane. This Section 10 shall survive termination of this agreement, brother. Changes to the agreement. ZeniMax may replace this EULA with new versions, each new EULA, over time as the game and the law evolve. This EULA will terminate immediately upon the introduction of a new EULA, and will be given an opportunity, and you will be given an opportunity to renew, and you will be given an opportunity to review the new EULA in accordance with the change provisions set out in the ZeniMax Terms of Service. New EULAs will not be applied retroactively. Your continued use of the game and play of the game after a modification of the EULA will be deemed as your acceptance of any modified terms. 12. U.S. government restricted rights. The game is a commercial item developed exclusively at private expense and compromised of commercial computer software and commercial computer software documentation, as these terms are defined in the applicable acquisitions regulations, including without limitation the Federal Acquisition Regulation FAR at 48 CFR 2.101. The game is licensed to the government end users subject to the terms of this agreement as specified in 48 CFR 12.212. Computer software and 12.211. If you sue someone, you can legally do so. Wait, you can legally make it to where they pay for their side of it, your side of it, and then if they're also the one getting sued and they lose, they also pay for the lawsuit. That's brutal, dude. That's awful. That's crazy. I never knew that. I assumed that you could maybe do something like that, but I didn't realize it was common. I didn't realize it was like a thing that happens often. That's crazy. And 12.211, technical data for civilian agencies. And as specified in 48 CFR, you know what, I should probably pull my chat back up on the stream, so that way whenever whenever I actually go through the process of doing this and making a video, chat, like, the people like looking at it don't think that I'm crazy and just talking to myself. I'm not sure if it's common, but you can do that. Yeah, see, like, I've heard of something like that, to where
Like, when a case is, like tied up enough in legal jargon and stuff, they could do that. But I didn't realize that, like, that game companies did it. I didn't know that game companies could legally do it, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't even like a case where it would be necessary. It's just a case that they blanketed a statement, and hopefully it just works, is kind of what it looks like to me. That's so odd that it does that. I wonder how many groups and companies do that, because it looks like it would just be it'd be the safe answer to always put it in. Just copy and paste it into every single end-user license. Solely with respect to the U.S. government's rights in the game, this U.S. government license rights clause is in lieu of and supersedes any other FAR, DFARS, or any other clause or provision of that contract under which the game is obtained. The manufacturer is ZeniMax. Governing law. For residents of North America, this agreement and all disputes as defined in the disputes provision shall be governed by the laws of the state of Maryland, USA, excluding its conflicts of laws, rules, and principles that will result in another state or country's laws applying to this agreement or any disputes. If you reside outside of North America, then this agreement and all disputes shall be governed by the laws of England, excluding its conflict of law, rules, and principles that will result in another state or country's law applying to this agreement or any disputes. Local mandatory laws may be applied. Notwithstanding the disputes provision, you agree that ZeniMax shall be entitled to injunctive relief, specific performance, and equitable remedies with respect of breaches to sections 1 or 3 of this agreement, in addition to such other remedies as ZeniMax may otherwise have under applicable law. This section 13 will survive the termination of this agreement. Crazy, I have been able to cook burgers, bacon, saute onions, and jalapenos, make a burger, and eat it all in the span of you reading this. Well, you know what they say. A burger is temporary. End-user license agreements are permanent. They're forever. 14. Miscellaneous. The EULA, along with the ZeniMax Terms of Service and the ZeniMax Code of Conduct, constitutes and contains the entire agreement between you and ZeniMax with respect to the subject matter hereof and supersedes any prior oral or written agreements. This EULA shall coexist with and shall not supersede the ZeniMax Terms of Service to the extent that the provisions of this EULA conflict with the provisions of the ZeniMax Terms of Service, and, unless expressly indicated otherwise in this agreement, the conflicting provisions in this EULA shall control and shall govern. No, they said the agreement can be terminated, thus not permanent. No, it can be updated. It can be updated. It can be terminated. Yeah, you're right, it can be terminated. Well, it's only terminated if it's not permanent. So I'm right until I'm not right. Because it goes on indefinitely until it's terminated. So that means until it's terminated, it is permanent. Because if they forget about it, it goes on forever. And then nobody has the legal authority to terminate it. God, where was I at? To the extent... Wait, this EULA shall coexist with and shall not supersede the ZeniMax Terms of Service. To the extent that the provisions of this EULA conflict with the provisions of the ZeniMax Terms of Service, and unless expressly indicated otherwise in this agreement, the conflicting provisions in this EULA shall control and shall govern. Except as specifically provided in the disputes provision, if any part of this agreement is held invalid or unenforceable, that portion shall be interpreted in the manner consistent with applicable law and reflect as nearly as possible the original intentions of such part, and the remaining portions of this agreement shall remain in full force and effect. So even if you do find a loophole in a certain phrasing, they will just say, oh yeah, legally that's our bad, we misspoke. This is what it's supposed to mean. That's also crazy. The failure of ZeniMax to exercise or enforce any right or provision of this agreement shall not constitute waiver or of such right or provision. Any waiver of any provision of this agreement will be effective only if, in a writing signed by ZeniMax, you agree that this agreement and ZeniMax's enforcement of this agreement are not intended to confer and do not confer any rights or remedies upon any person other than you and ZeniMax. This Section 14 shall survive the termination of this agreement for any reason. By clicking accept, I confirm I have read and acknowledged the ZeniMax Media privacy policy and agree to the ZeniMax Media terms of service and code of conduct. Okay, what's my time? 48 minutes, 45 seconds, give or take. I didn't really time it, but that's the Terms of Service Oblivion speedrun, everybody. Thank you for joining the stream. I will see you next time. Easy, put me on the leaderboard. Top 10 readers ever. Oh my god.